A photo from 2000 just reopened one of the darkest stories in America. The DOJ released millions of Epstein files, but quietly hid half of them. Now the First Lady's lawyers are threatening journalists with billion-dollar lawsuits. What are they trying to stop you from seeing?
A photograph from the year 2000 has resurfaced, and it's raising serious legal and political questions. In the image, Donald Trump, Melania Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell stand together at Mar-a-Lago. The Department of Justice quietly released the photo, pulled it down, and then posted it again. But the picture itself is not the real story. What matters is what's buried inside the newly released Epstein files and how the First Lady is responding to them. On January 30, 2026, the Department of Justice announced what it called the final tranche of Epstein-related material. More than 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, and nearly 200,000 images were released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, passed in late 2025. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche claimed the DOJ had complied with the law, but the numbers tell a different story. The department identified more than 6 million responsive pages and released barely half. Millions remain withheld, and Congress has received only vague explanations. Inside the released documents, Melania Trump's name and image appear repeatedly, not because she has been charged with a crime, but because she was present in Epstein's social orbit. She attended events, appeared in photographs, and crossed paths with him publicly. Once journalists began asking serious questions about those connections, her legal strategy changed fast. Instead of staying silent, her team went on the attack. Melania Trump's attorney, Alejandro Brito, began sending aggressive legal threat letters to journalists and commentators who mentioned her relationship to Epstein's world. The demands were extreme, threatening damages of up to $1 billion. That number isn't about winning a case, it's about fear. It's designed to make people stop talking before anything ever reaches a courtroom.
The pressure worked on some. Public figures issued apologies. Major outlets pulled stories, but not everyone backed down. Journalist Michael Wolff, who interviewed Epstein before his death, reported that Melania Trump moved in Epstein's social circle and repeated claims Epstein himself made about the Trumps. After receiving legal threats, Wolff didn't retract. Instead, in October 2025, he filed a preemptive lawsuit in New York under the state's anti-SLAPP law. That move changed everything. By filing first, Wolff gained subpoena power. He can now compel testimony under oath, he can demand documents, and he has stated publicly that he wants to question both Donald and Melania Trump about their relationship with Epstein. What was meant to silence a journalist has now opened the door to legal discovery. From a prosecutor's point of view, this is a classic trap. A powerful figure tries to intimidate the press, but ends up creating the very legal process that forces answers into the public record. And this is only the beginning. What happens next will decide whether power can still hide from accountability. The lawsuit brought by journalist Michael Wolff is moving forward. Despite efforts to delay service and shift the case into federal court, the legal process has already started. Under New York law, anti-SLAPP protections exist for one reason: to stop powerful people from using money and intimidation to silence public debate. Wolff now has the ability to demand documents, compel testimony, and put witnesses under oath. That includes people at the very center of the Epstein network.
At the same time, the Epstein files are far from complete. More than 2.5 million pages remain unreleased. Entire grand jury records are still sealed. Lawmakers have openly questioned why the Department of Justice identified 6 million pages but released barely half. Polls show most Americans believe information is still being hidden. Transparency was promised, but secrecy remains the reality. When you look at the pattern, it becomes clear. Legal threats from the East Wing, delays from the Department of Justice, massive redactions, missing pages, strategic silence. None of this happens by accident. Institutions act this way when the stakes are high and exposure is dangerous. Once testimony happens under oath, the rules change. There is no public relations spin. There is no social media cleanup. There is no walking back sworn statements in a courtroom. Discovery forces timelines, names, documents, and relationships into the record. That is what powerful people fear most. Not rumors, but verified facts. This is bigger than one lawsuit. It's bigger than one family. It's about whether influence can override truth. It's about whether intimidation can replace accountability. And it's about whether the public ever gets to see the full scope of what happened inside one of the most disturbing criminal networks in modern American history. Every major exposure in history started the same way, with resistance, denial, legal pressure, and silence, until someone refused to back down. Now the question is simple. Will the files stay buried, or will the truth finally surface? That's what World Dark Files is about. If you want real accountability, stay informed. If you want transparency, keep watching. If you believe the public deserves the truth, share this story. Because darkness only survives when no one looks. Welcome to World Dark Files.